at that time, and that's when he really started to cry. They had to give him some tissues. He said the bruises on little Cody's face were purple, and that he, at one point, Anton Bell even picked up the boy who was testifying onto the desk and had him demonstrate how little Cody was laying when he wasn't moving. And he said, quote, I was thinking he was dead. So he runs downstairs to his father, and he says, Dad, what's wrong with Cody? And he says, Dad nothing was.
This afternoon, Chatham County Police Department detectives arrested 22-year-old Levani Simon and charged her with malice murder, concealing the death of another person, false reporting and making false statements in connection with the disappearance and death of her son, 20-month-old Quentin Simon. Levani Simon is being held at the Chatham County Detention Center and is awaiting a bond hearing. We do not anticipate any. The 3-year-old that we located was Ellie Lorenzo.
On Friday, Ellie's mom requested a welfare check after the 3-year-old's dad did not show up for a custody swap. The girl's father was later found dead in San Francisco.
In speaking with the neighboring agencies, I was able to confirm that the
Her new attorney Amber Gratz requesting bond lowered from $15,000 to $5,000. Katrina Bauer is the mother of 3-year-old Elijah Vu, who went missing on February 20th. She's been charged with child neglect, but not directly in his disappearance.
I think that is sufficient to ensure her appearance, especially given her.
A little girl in Tennessee vanished from her rural home. Her name is Summer Wells, and what you're seeing here is a brand new age progression photo from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. This is what Summer may look like today. She's 7 years old. She was 5 when she disappeared. All of the attention on Summer's case has led to dead-end tips for investigators, even harassment towards her parents. Now law enforcement are tight-lipped about what they know about the case. Summers may have private investigators working with police. Hawkins County Sheriff's Office is still working alongside the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Both agencies declined. Home in Hendersonville, that is in Sumner County, Tennessee. Sebastian's mom says that he was gone when she went to wake him up for school that day. Police say there has been no evidence of foul play, and the family is cooperating. Authorities have scoured miles of land looking for Sebastian, but there have been no leads to this point. Now, in early April, law enforcement said,
I didn't speak in court, and neither did the boy's biological father, who was in custody on an unrelated charge, but he said he wanted to listen to the sentencing and to the other family members who spoke at the hearing.
Gabriel had unconditional love for you, and you took advantage of that, knowing he will never turn you in.
But Gabriel's teacher, Jennifer Garcia, did report the abuse to a hotline. However, social workers left Gabriel in a home where he was tortured and starved and eventually beaten to death by Aguirre and Fernandez.
signify utter heartbreak.
It's one of the toughest investigations that I've been involved in because it's a child.
A shaken sheriff Friday confirming 7-year-old Athena Strand has been found dead. Her body discovered less than 10 miles from her driveway, where investigators say 31-year-old
On February 26th, and her body was found days later in woods in Osceola County. Stearns was arrested after her disappearance for sex crimes. He was indicted on murder charges in April. The state says it made its decision based on several aggravating factors in the case.
Just over a week ago, 18-year-old Darian Brown is now charged with kidnapping and theft in connection to the event. Sources say murder could be next, depending on DNA results.
Experience something like this, we don't know how to react. It's just like, okay, what can you do? We didn't expect somebody to just take a kid.
Because we're hurt.
The Queen community gathered Monday night with city leaders like TC Broadcast, now it's the city manager.
As a police officer, I was angry. As a father, I was angry. Okay? And so the trauma you feel, I can guarantee you, my men and women felt as well.
As well as
Searching for a missing teen last seen Friday, August the 2nd. Angel Turner disappeared from Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. That's about an hour and a half.
What really aggravated me was when you reached out to me, and I'm not going to put your business out there, although you have, I gave you advice. And then later I find out that you actually called another creator's courthouse for a domestic violence situation and said you wanted to be a witness. I can't do it. But then you got all upset, and us as all creators stuck up for you when you said, the creator whose name we can't say 3 times because she'll show up. Do you remember when she went on the platform of the creator that Granny had an order against? And we all said, oh my God, no, you can't do this. You can't do this. This is unacceptable. But then I find out you were doing all this other stuff. I just don't get it. I don't. I just don't understand how it's allowed. I don't understand how this, and like and don't start because I don't like you. I have no use for you. So don't even come in here with your little smiley faces and shit because nobody wants to see you. But Granny, I think that you could do really, really good. I do. But I think you have to be honest. And you're not being honest. 100% you're not being honest. Because you told your community you did not say that. And you 100% said that. Then you tried to gaslight everybody and say, well, I didn't mean that. It's crazy to me that I don't understand that how people aren't calling this out and saying, there's a problem here. I don't know. I don't know. I get that, talking, speaking out, oh my God, you're not going to get the views. Like, I care. I don't. I really don't. My concern are these victims and their families. And, Sebastian, at this point, nobody knows really anything about Sebastian's case. It's all about this and this and this and this and drama. I don't understand. And then we're bringing his sister into this now. I don't understand. A few months ago, we would have tarred and feathered a person that, brought his sibling here and said these things about her. But now we're making excuses. I just don't understand. I don't.
Dreadful, dreadful. Listen to this. The link to the full interview, please go and watch it. It's in the description box.
There was an incident in California before Chris and Katie came back here. There was another CPS incident in California at her house. Katie and Chris let a child into their house that was 5 years older than my son. My son was 7 or 8 at the time, and this kid was 13. And she has a habit of not checking on her kid. I would never let some kid that's 5 years older than my son play with my son anyways. It's like, why do you want to play with my son? There's a 5-year difference. That's a pretty big difference. You're 13, and my son, you're a teenager. My son is not a teenager. He's still playing with Hot Wheels and Legos, and, he's building things. He's playing video games, and you're a teenager. You go out and you have your own, age-appropriate group that you play with. And they were letting this kid play with my son, and they weren't checking on him. And then this kid took my son's innocence, and he molested him.
Take time.
And there was nothing I could do in California because the kid was 13. But they let that happen. And they didn't bother to try to even get my son help until last year. Here, my son has just turned 15 in December. It means he's been dealing with an emotional, stressful, traumatic incident for the last 7 years. And I've been trying to help him. I've been trying to get him help. Going to talk to his doctor and telling them what happened. And for the doctor to tell me, she was like, I knew none of this stuff. And I'm like, really? Because he's supposed to be seeing a therapist for this. And she's like, well, he's not seeing the right type of therapist for this type of trauma. I care about my son. And
you deserve to know what happened to your son. Every bit. And I'm sorry, I don't think any of us were aware of that. And I'm so sorry that, number one, that he went through that, and two, that as a parent, you're going through a parent's worst nightmare, but that's like the second worst nightmare.
My son around his daughter. My mom, your grandson's a pedophile. No, he's not. He's a victim that hasn't got the help that he deserves and that he needs so that he can get over the traumatic incident that has happened to him. That should have never happened underneath their watch to begin with. That's why Chris doesn't want my son around his daughter, because he's scared that my son is going to do the same thing that was done to him under his watch.
So him saying, if people start asking why I don't want Sebastian around Faith, they won't go and look for Sebastian. If they found out the truth.
Yeah. That people wouldn't go look for my son.
Okay.
I had told him you don't want to go down that route.
Gotcha. And he said this between you and him.
Katie was on the phone too.
So Katie was on the phone as well. Okay. So what was the conversation like? I mean, was this just a regular conversation, or was this a full-on blown-out argument?
During podcasts, why he didn't want my son around his daughter.
So this happened because, okay.
People were asking questions.
People were asking questions like the smart, intelligent people that they are. Go ahead.
Why don't you bash around your daughter? People were asking, Chris, why don't you want Sebastian around your daughter? I see people in chat that were asking me all the time, why doesn't Chris want Sebastian around his daughter? There's your answer.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So you're telling me that he looks at Sebastian like some sort of predator?
Possible that Sebastian moving out of the Proudfoot home had something to do with Faith potentially moving in. Chris has been adamant that this is not the case, but there is a pretty big piece of evidence that he has not been able to overcome, and to my knowledge, that he has not denied. Chris Proudfoot told Seth Rogers that he did not want Sebastian around his daughter. Speaking on the Pascal show on April 5th, Seth said that people were asking Chris why he didn't want my son around his daughter, and he kept telling me that if people kept asking the question, he's going to answer it. As for what he meant by this, Seth elaborated that Chris said that if he tells them, people will stop looking for Sebastian. Pascal then clarified, so you're telling me that he looks at Sebastian like some kind of predator, to which Seth simply replied, yeah. As for why, Seth tied it to something that happened to Sebastian under Chris and Katie's watch while they were still living in San Diego. Seth mentioned during a few different interviews that when Sebastian was 8, Chris and Katie left him alone with a 13-year-old boy, and as a result, Sebastian had his innocence taken from him. He used more explicit terms at other times, but I'm sure you can grasp what I'm suggesting here. Seth went on to explain that he felt that Sebastian had not received the proper kind of care or counseling, and that as a result, he hadn't properly processed or recovered from the traumatic experience. My son is a victim, he said, and if victims don't get the proper help, they repeat because all of a sudden they think it's normal. And studies show that victims of childhood sexual abuse will go on to become offenders themselves. So Seth is completely right about this. He continued, my son's autistic, and if he doesn't get the proper help, we don't want him to become that. And there's multiple different ways, but if you're not certified in the proper way to get him help, you're just going to make it worse. And the implication here, while never explicitly stated, is that whatever therapist or psychiatrist he was seeing did not have the correct credentials or training for this kind of trauma. Pascal was understandably confused as to what Sebastian had done to cause Chris to see him as, quote, some sort of monster, and Seth explained that Chris doesn't see him as innocent because Sebastian had done some questionable things. In Seth's opinion, these were more issues of Sebastian having autism and not understanding social cues or personal boundaries. So the things that Sebastian was doing, according to Seth, were more along the lines of, while in the men's room, Seth said was innocent kid stuff, probably not the best terminology, but with autism, he's not really wrong. You know, I'm sure there are other people here watching that remember in grade school that, you know, sometimes the autistic kids, especially back in the 2000s when this stuff wasn't nearly as well understood or normalized, sometimes would pull their pants all the way down in the bathroom. I would be willing to bet just about every guy who went to public school has experienced that. It was never a predatory thing. It was not understanding that that's not what you do at that age or in public. In any case, so far as Seth was aware, Sebastian had never done anything like this to Faith, who he says Sebastian saw, or sees, if we're being optimistic here, as a younger sister.
Maybe I'm the little victim, you know, that wants to think everybody else is a victim and I want to feel bad for everybody. Which I know is not true, but of course someone will say that to me simply because I'm a survivor of CSA. That means that, you know, I believe everybody is and I want to stick up for everybody in life. But that's not the way it goes. And, you know, the other thing that really aggravated me was she was on panel later and said, I would never put that on another child. And she blamed, you know, Voices for the Voiceless. I guess that's something really gross about her. And said, then she started crying. And of course, I would be upset too. I mean, what Voices said was gross. However, that didn't give her the right to say what she said. Super chat and say, oh, it's okay, everything's fine. I just can't do it. I just, you know, I can't do it. And I'm sure, you know, a lot of people are gonna get really angry and all in their feelings. And, well, she's doing her best. Well, you know what? That's cool. That's great. But then you probably shouldn't be in this community. You probably shouldn't be talking about victims and their families then, if you don't know how to behave. That's just my opinion. You know, I don't know. I just, you know, and I'll be honest, it wasn't even well, what she did bother me, it pissed me off. But to watch people that I actually really like and respect that sat up there and agreed. I was like, yeah, no. I don't know. I don't know. Right. And the other thing was the tip line. You know, when that rumor came out, I had never heard that rumor about Sebastian before. And all of a sudden rumor was out there. And I'm like, oh. And there was, again, no accountability because it was, oh no, that's out. And I'm like, well, where the hell have I been? I've never seen that. I just, you know, I think and Granny, if you're here, please comment. I would love to have you come up and have a conversation with me. You know, this isn't like a bass session about you, but you know, these are things that have to be said. That you know, if this continues, then none of us have any integrity. None of us do. And I can't do it. You can hate me you can say I'm a smart ass, you can say I think I'm better than everybody, you can say all the things. But one thing you will never be able to say about me is that I don't tell the truth and I don't put victims first. And other than that, have it. The sad part is I really like her. I think that she could do really well. She has to be accountable before she does. And that's the problem. And if she wants to come up and have a conversation with me, I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with her. I don't know. I can't. I'm over it. At this point, I just don't think there's any room. And QWERTY, I thought so too, but the last couple of times it's like consistent. It keeps happening. It's the same things that keeps happening, and it's weird to me. That I don't know. Like if it keeps happening, do you listen to people? How many times do you allow this? Is I guess my question.